The wind howled through the desolate streets as a thick blanket of fog settled over the town, casting eerie shadows on the crumbling buildings. It was the kind of night that made even the bravest soul shudder, and it was on this ominous evening that Emily found herself alone at home, her stomach growling and her cravings for a late-night snack insatiable. With a sigh, she reached for her phone, determined to satisfy her hunger pang. She scrolled through the various food delivery apps, the fluorescent glow of the screen providing the only source of light in her dimly lit apartment. After a few taps, she placed an order for a cheeseburger and fries from a nearby diner. As Emily waited for her food to arrive, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in her chest. The silence in her apartment was deafening, broken only by the occasional distant rumble of thunder. She tried to distract herself by flipping through the channels on the television, but her mind kept returning to the eerie atmosphere outside. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as she waited for her delivery. She checked her phone repeatedly, her anxiety growing with each passing minute. Finally, a notification popped up, indicating that the delivery driver had arrived. Emily let out a sigh of relief, assuming her unease had been nothing more than paranoia. She eagerly made her way to the front door, her footsteps echoing through the empty hallway. With trembling hands, she turned the doorknob and pulled the door open. Her heart sank as she was greeted not by the cheerful face of a delivery driver, but by an empty, dimly lit hallway. Confusion and fear gnawed at Emily as she stepped outside, her eyes darting around in search of any sign of the missing delivery driver. She called out, her voice trembling, but received only silence in response. Her food, however, sat on the ground just a few feet from her doorstep, its paper bag crumpled and grease-stained. As she bent down to pick up the bag, a sudden, bone-chilling breeze swept through the hallway. It carried with it a whisper, faint but unmistakable, like a ghostly murmur. Emily's blood ran cold as she strained to make out the words. "Help me!" Her pulse quickened, and she spun around, her heart pounding in her chest. The hallway was still empty, but the air was heavy with an unshakable sense of dread. She grabbed her phone and dialed the restaurant's number, desperate for answers. The voice on the other end was shaky, barely audible. The restaurant staff had no recollection of sending a delivery driver to her address that night. They assured her that all their drivers were safe and accounted for. Panic gripped Emily as she hung up the phone, her mind racing with possibility. She returned to her apartment, the unease she had felt earlier now amplified tenfold. The food lay untouched on the kitchen table, forgotten in the wake of the chilling encounter. As she sat in the dimly lit room, the silence pressing in on her, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was not alone. It was a feeling that would haunt her long after that fateful night, a feeling that would leave her questioning the boundaries between reality and the supernatural. Midnight had come and gone, but Emily's night had just begun. Little did she know that the true horrors of her food delivery nightmare were yet to be revealed, lurking in the shadows, waiting to engulf her in a darkness she could never have imagined.